Hello again, my lovely tribe. I hope you all are doing well. I am super excited about the next two videos because I have actually been promoting them. What? Michelle, you know how to promote things? You know how to do things? Yes. Tonight, we will be going over a book that in many ways changed my entire perspective on demonology. So, as you may remember, if you've been keeping up with my demonology series, I have had a very open mind. I have had a very non-stuck in Christian dogma mind when it comes to demons, demonology, and the study of those negative entities that we've come to know and despise. However, this book changes the game. Ed and Lorraine Warren are some of the most revered demonologists, spiritualists, if you want to call them that, people in the entire world. And recently we did lose Lorraine. A few years back we lost Ed. Lorraine is now with him. I will never speak ill of the dead. I will never speak ill of Ed and Lorraine Warren. So if you have come to this channel to hear me talk about how horrible they were, that they were phonies or frauds, that's not going to happen today. I don't honestly at my core believe that they were phonies or frauds. I think a lot of times people tend to mix and match the actual case facts with Hollywood's idea of what happened. Many of Ed and Lorraine Warren's cases have become Hollywood blockbusters. Think The Conjuring, think Annabelle, The Nun even, which actually had no real place in Ed and Lorraine Warren's life. The Nun was just kind of an add-on. It was a complete fictional piece. So if you're wondering if that had anything to actually do with Ed and Lorraine Warren, it did not. So Ed and Lorraine Warren have had a lot of controversy surrounding them since the beginning, right? Many of their cases have been called hoaxes. Many of their cases have been called complete fabrications, lies, things like that. But at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of that is media hype. And the media, even books like these, movies, documentaries, they tend to get a few things wrong from the actual case itself and what happened and what was reported. So most of the cases that we know about today that have been completely sensationalized, like Annabelle or, let me think, Amityville or the Enfield Voices, the Enfield case over in the UK, they have been so sensationalized by the media, by Hollywood, by different books and things like that written on the cases, that it's really hard to discern what was made up from what actually happened nowadays. If you Google any of those cases, you're going to find articles of what actually happened, but you're also going to find articles about what happened in the movie versus this versus that. So it's really easy to get the facts confused with a lot of the, what I call Hollywood hype around these cases, because things like this obviously don't happen every day. Things like this are outside of the norm and a little bit crazy. So when these cases come to the forefront, when they're publicized in the news, when you have people like Ed and Lorraine Warren coming to the public and saying these things actually happen, it's really hard to believe. And of course, I don't knock anyone who is a complete skeptic. I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong, because obviously I have no idea. I have no idea if the cases in this book are real or if they were complete fabrications. But I'm going to tell you today a little bit about why I personally feel that Ed and Lorraine Warren were telling the truth. So, the Amityville case, even Annabelle, and the Enfield case in particular, have all been called hoaxes, have all had people basically say that they were not real, that they were complete fabrications. They've had situations come up that would lead one to believe that they were hoaxes. They've had people that were involved in the case point blank claim that they were hoaxes. However, I really don't believe that Ed and Lorraine Warren specifically were lying about the cases. themselves. I believe that they did report the truth. Now, after the fact, could they have been wrong? Could they have mistaken what seemed to be demonic or spirit activity and was actually like mental health disorders, or was actually people acting or faking? I do believe that that's true, but I don't necessarily believe that that is Ed and Lorraine Warren's fault, that people choose to be shady or that people choose to lie. Some people are very good at lying. Some people are complete sociopaths and get off on it, you know? So I think if anyone was lied to the most, it was Ed and Lorraine Warren in these situations, because I feel like they approached the situation like they did every case that they worked on. They believed the people involved. They seemed to be, and of course I didn't know them personally, so I don't know, but it seemed to me like they were genuine people. Like, they approached the case with science, yes, but they were very spiritual people, and they didn't pretend to be anything else. Ed and Lorraine Warren didn't pretend to be some scientific ghost hunter team that was coming in to completely debunk everything, although a lot of their cases did debunk things. Lorraine Warren herself said that many times they would be called on cases where people would hear things in the house, people would have electrical issues, and they, for some reason their first instinct was it was a ghost or something like that. But Ed and Lorraine would come in and show them exactly what was happening. So it's not that every case Ed and Lorraine Warren worked on became this huge demonic case, you know? Now, they definitely had their fair share, more than their fair share, more than anyone's fair share of demonic run-ins. But again, we've talked about this in a previous demonology video. If it becomes your life work to the point where you're pursuing spiritual encounters, you are going to have more than your fair share of run-ins with negative entities. It's just the way it works. Most people in life are not pursuing these types of things. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people need help with these types of situations. And I feel like Ed and Lorraine Warren genuinely wanted to help people. I know some people think that they made it big off of their books and the movies and they were just filthy rich. But honestly, in interviews with Lorraine up until like the most recent one before her passing, she seemed to be a very humble person. She didn't have like decadent jewelry from all the money they made off of their books. In fact, they stayed in the same house that they pretty much started out in. All they did was, you know, make room for their occult museum, and it seemed to me like the money was really spent on their family and providing resources to do more cases. So I'm not really sure where people get off saying, oh, the Warrens just made up all this shit so they could get famous and rich, because the fame is a double-edged sword. Like, yes, their name got out there, and yes, they got a lot of publicity and a lot of hype, but at the same time, they had so many people bashing them all the time, telling them that they were fakes, they were frauds, they were phonies, they saying really horrible things about them. And I think like that's the double-edged sword with any kind of fame. It might be good for a minute, but at the same time, when you put yourself out there like that, you're putting yourself out there for a lot of ridicule and a lot of hatred as well. And I think they probably dealt with their fair share of hate from their peers, from anyone. But another thing that really struck me about this book, about their cases in general, was how much trust was put into them by people from the church. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean that they were completely truthful and that everything they said was completely true, because I mean, I know that they're all human. Even people from the church are capable of lying and hiding the truth and being manipulative. But it just seemed like there were so many different people who were high ranking in the church who put a lot of faith and trust in them and would ask them to investigate cases before the church would even get involved. And to me, that says a lot, because as we know from certain cases, the church, especially the Catholic Church, has a reputation that has been very tattered in the past by people jumping the gun on doing exorcisms and by priests hurting people during exorcisms. So they have a lot of shit to make up for, in a way. So I feel like now more than ever, it's practically impossible to get an exorcism or to get the church involved in demonic cases. So the fact that the church had so much on the line publicly, and they still put so much faith in Ed and Lorraine Warren to go and investigate these cases and to report back honestly, and then to put action into play after the reports from Ed and Lorraine Warren. I just feel like that speaks a lot to their truthful nature. I have a high respect for Ed and Lorraine Warren, all the work they did, the influence they had on the paranormal field, and the people that they taught, and the people that they mentored before their passing. They have spread the message of what demonology really is and how to really go about pursuing the knowledge in a safe way drastically. They have changed the paranormal field so drastically, and it's amazing all the things that they've done, all the people that they've influenced. Think about Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventures. Think about John Zaffis, who was related. Think about all sorts of different paranormal teams that we've seen on TV or we've heard about in the news. Like, they've all been influenced by these cases. Any kind of person who calls himself a demonologist, they wouldn't have anything to call themselves. They wouldn't have any kind of title like demonologist if it wasn't for Ed and Lorraine Warren. I guarantee you. And another thing that they really did for the paranormal community was take the study of demonology and take the idea of exorcism and standing up to negative entities to the main public, because for the longest time it was just something that the church did and that the church kept quiet and that only holy men of the church could handle. But with books like this coming out and with Ed and Lorraine Warren traveling and teaching and doing what they did for the paranormal community, it really got out there. It really got spread, and it really, honestly, it influenced the hell out of me. When I first found this book, I was early 20s. I read it and it changed my freaking life, because I finally realized what I was doing. I was studying demonology. It wasn't just that I was obsessed with dark negative entities. It wasn't anything like that. It's that I was obsessed with learning how to overcome them and to help people overcome them, because I don't, it's such a weird thing to talk about, because things like demons and negative entities are things that a lot of people don't believe in. And for some reason, even in my lowest moments in life, when I didn't have hardly any faith in God, I always believed that there were negative spirits in the world. And for me, having that knowledge within kept my faith going in God, because I can't, like, me personally, I'm not built in a way that I can believe in a world where there are demons without there also being angels. I can't believe in a world without there being devils, without there also being God. So for me, demonology itself has kept my faith alive. And I know it's kind of morbid and dark and serious, but it's definitely a calling. And Ed and Lorraine Warren had that calling to the core. So regardless of whether or not you believe their cases were true, I would like to hear from you guys. You know, like, what do you think about Ed and Lorraine Warren's cases? Do you think they were fakes? Do you think they were truthful? What do you believe about them? Now, just to kind of go over this book in particular, this book goes over many of their cases, but definitely not all, because they had so many. But in this book, you will find the Amityville horror case, you will find the Enfield Voices case, you will find Annabelle, you will find so many different little cases that I had never heard of in my life. Just little moments in time where Ed and Lorraine Warren would help out, even on military bases, even with people who would have absolutely no belief in the paranormal at all. Who did they go to when things got a little freaky? Ed and Lorraine Warren. The main case that this book revolves around, in my opinion, is the case of the Beckfords. To me, if there was one case that was the hardest to wrap my mind around and believe in, it would be the Beckford case. But this book really breaks it down. There's photography in this book. Let me see if I can grab some of the pictures for y'all. There's pictures in this book. Now, of course, none of the pictures are hardcore evidence of, you know, paranormal activity, but they're really interesting to see of the Beckford case, like things that were moved, things that were thrown, things that were completely supposedly like dematerialized in front of your eyes and then materialized later. To me, of all of the cases, even Annabelle and things like that, of all of the cases that are hardest to wrap my mind around, it would be the Beckford case out of all of them. If you don't know about that case, I highly encourage you to study it up, definitely read this book. Definitely read this book. If you have any interests at all in demonology or even in the paranormal field, I highly recommend reading this book. And not just this book, but the other books that have to do with Ed and Lorraine Warren's career, their cases, and the investigations that they've been on, because they were so influential in the paranormal field. It's written by Gerald Brittle, but it is all about Ed and Lorraine Warren, and it's written in a really amazing style where it's kind of like part storytelling, part documentary interviewing combined. So it's basically Gerald Brittle sitting down with Ed and Lorraine Warren and writing out the cases as they talk about them, which is so interesting and fascinating. So yes, definitely check out The Demonologist. If y'all have any questions about this book, where you can find it, I guarantee you can find it on Amazon, Half Price Books, Barnes & Noble. I'm sure you can find this book pretty much anywhere. So go forth, find this book, 2 thumbs up, 5 stars, fascinating book. Even if you don't quite fully believe that Ed and Lorraine Warren were truthful and real, this book is still a very interesting and exciting read if you like to read it all. And again, if you're a complete skeptic and you don't believe in Ed and Lorraine Warren, I still encourage you to read it, because you get a deeper insight of what the case was. You get to kind of really see their point of view of the case versus the Hollywood media hype bullshit version of the case. So that's kind of refreshing, and it's kind of also refreshing to see how down to earth they both are, even though they work in a very non-earthly field. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it was kind of shorter and compact and weird and awkward, but yeah, I'm filming this after like the longest work day of my life. So forgive me if I act a little bit cuckoo and crazy right now. Yeah, but I hope you guys are excited for the next video coming up. I have been hyping this video up so much because I am so excited about it. Black-eyed kids. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna leave you with. If you don't know what that is, do a little research before the video, but don't worry if you don't, because we will be discussing black-eyed kids at length on the next video. I'll see you then. Stay spooky, scared, and freaky, and I hope y'all are having a great day, a great month, and a great year. Peace.